After 7 days of ceasefire, the sky over Gaza is echoing with the sound of firing once again. Israel and Hamas expired. Israel says rockets have been seen fired to and from Gaza this morning. Both sides have blamed each other for the violence restarting. The Israeli army accused Hamas of violating the terms of the truce by failing to release all the female and child hostages being held in Gaza. In turn, Hamas blamed Israel for breaking the ceasefire agreement by preventing fuel supplies from reaching North Gaza. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says at least 30 people have been killed by airstrikes in the hours since fighting resumed. During the temporary ceasefire, more than 100 Israeli hostages were released in exchange for 240 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. The Israeli military dropped leaflets warning people in the east of Khan Yunis to head even further south to Rafah near the Egypt border. Similar warning leaflets have been dropped in some areas since the war broke out as part of what the IDF says are various means to avoid harming civilians in the Gaza Strip. The IDF has now created a new map dividing Gaza into hundreds of zones, which it says will be used to warn civilians of areas they need to evacuate in preparation for the next stage of the war. The Israeli Defense Forces say the resumed operation against Hamas is now to strike them in their strongholds. Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner said the IDF's goals had remained the same throughout the conflict, which is to bring back all of the hostages and destroy Hamas.
Cycle of death and destruction.
In reaction to the resumption of hostilities, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he deeply regrets the resumption of fighting in Gaza. In a statement on social media, he says, quote, "I still hope that it will be possible to renew the pause that was established. The return to hostilities only shows how important it is to have a true humanitarian ceasefire," end quote. The restart in hostilities is likely to worsen the humanitarian crisis in Gaza amid severe shortages of food, water and medicine and the critical state of the local health system. Hamas attacked Israel on the 7th of October, killing 1,200 people, with around 240 others taken hostage. Since then, Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says more than 14,800 people have been killed in Israel's retaliatory campaign, including about 6,000 children.
For more on the war between Israel and Gaza, we have joining us from Texas, that's Dallas in Texas, Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okwa. Thank you so much for joining us on The World Now. Well, Israel-Hamas war has resumed barely a week after the truce expired. Well, the world was hoping for a possible extension. In your opinion, what went wrong?
Everything has gone wrong with, from the beginning of Israel, being set up in Palestinian at the time it started to this day. So, I mean, the world leaders are not serious about finding peace between Palestinians and Israel. Just like, in your previous segment of the news, you talked about the climate change. There's a lot of hopes, there's a lot of, insincerity, there's a lot of, commitment that does not follow through to get anything done. So it's no surprise, that you barely after the ceasefire, ended, the wars started. Then it tells you, it tells you a story, or you ask yourself a question: what is intelligence? Israel. What happens to the intelligence? You're not able to prevent these things, or you want these things to happen, so you can come back, more aggressive and more forceful, and do what it is you've been wanting to do. I wish I have a magic wand. I wish I could see the future. I wish I could get in the minds of the players on both sides and see what it is they're thinking, because this is just horrible and horrifying. Civilians are dying, people's safety is always in question, and then we have summits. I mean, look at all the summits that have been had and are being planned, and nothing. Nobody seems to have a solution, a permanent. Two people, two nations have held the world since 1948 to date, and we haven't been able to find solution. I mean, it should make every one of us, both the developed and undeveloped nations, we're not truthful about finding solutions for things that are facing the human beings on earth.
We've seen Israel, of course, accuse Hamas of violating the truce first by firing rockets towards its territory. And we've also seen about 137 hostages are still in Hamas custody. What do you think is the fate of the women and children still in captivity? Although we've seen some propaganda video also from Hamas showing that they've been caring for these captives.
Well, I mean, there's some have been released and some have been held. It's a game of cat and mouse. You release some, we release some, and then we go back and we fight some more and we release some. So, I mean, so far the people that have been released, they've gone through medical checkup and nobody had a serious issue. The thing is, should we even have to where we are holding each other and then, coming to table to seek for something, that for some people to be released? These are human beings. These are not animals. Even, I mean, in the West, if you do certain things to dog, you go to jail. But, it doesn't matter, when human beings are being killed by other human beings. So that's, for me, is what is really shocking. Because, with the advancement we've had in leadership and technology and military intelligence and espionage, we still are not able to get on the preventive side of things to see who is about to attack who and see if we can prevent. We just allow stuff to happen, and then everybody does action and reaction. So hopefully, another ceasefire or truce is called and is obeyed, and some people get released. And then again, what do you expect is going to happen? They're going to come back and start to do what? Because the military-industrial complex, don't forget this, a lot of people make money. A lot of people are getting wealthy, with what is going on in Israel and Palestine. Because somebody's selling them the guns. Somebody's selling them the rockets. Somebody's selling them everything. And somebody's hoping that once this is over with, they're going to go back to do what? Rebuild it. So that's money to be made in such a conflict. And it's very unfortunate.
So let's just, take a moment back. So when Hamas attacked Israel on October 7, and then people castigated Hamas for the brutal attack. And then we saw Israel also come in with their pounding and their guns, of course, pounding places in Gaza. The question comes up as to what the political career of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be if eventually this war comes to an end.
Well, I think, the idea of, arresting him and trying him for crime against humanity is out there. Whether that will actually be effected or executed, is yet to be seen until it happens. The idea of Hamas and Israel organized military. If you go back to the history of when the Jews started moving into Palestine back in the 20s, when the British people occupied Palestine. Don't forget that the Israelis were using guerrilla warfare against the British. Okay? So now that the Palestinians are using the same tactics the Jews were using back in the 20s, they are calling it war terrorists. So it just tells you it depends on who is initiating the action. Like, in physics, there's action and reaction. Can they be equal and the same thing? No, they are equal and opposite. So the freedom fighters today are labeled conveniently, as what? Terrorists. But they have their own justification, true or false, for what they are doing. Because when you push somebody to the corner, what do you think they're going to do? So the Palestinians, in their mind, are justified. People can come up with all kinds of historical data that is the homeland of the Jews and all this other stuff. I mean, like I said, it's it's a back and forth story that, depending on whose side you want to be, you could feel justified in encouraging them to do what it is they do. I'm just saying, can there be a neighbor loving neighbor? Love thy neighbor, live and let live. I mean, that's one of the mottos of a state in America: live and let live. So how come the Palestinians are not letting the Jews or the Israelis live, and the Jews are not letting them live? Why not? What are you fighting for? Land? Okay, have yourself divide the boundary, put a wall. You stay on your side, I stay on my side. But we haven't been able to do it. The two-party states that we've been talking about, some people have gotten, what is it called, Nobel Prize in it. What has it led us to? What has it led to? America will come in and say, okay, don't do this. We're going to give you humanitarian. The European unions will step in. Everybody's talking from the corner of their mouth. Nobody's sincere about what needs to happen. Because the West, America, for instance, is the most supportive part of Israel. No American president has the guts to come and tell Israel, don't do this, or we're going to pull out. They can say it, because if they do it, they're going to have the big backlash. So the politics of today, is the politics of insincerity. And that is why we have the crisis we have in the world.
Of course, we're hoping to see how the international community will, of course, try to strike another deal, a truce deal for Israel and Hamas. Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okpa, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Back in Africa.